In this video, we'll be continuing the theme of the relationship between motion pictures and small screen television. The television isn't so small screen these days, but back in the 1980s and the 1990s, we still had those behemoth tubed monstrosities. Today, let's talk about movies that were turned into one-hour action dramas. The genres will be a nice mix of horror, science fiction, and police procedurals. I'm not going to be speaking about the level of quality, well, I might throw in a jab or two. But in most cases, the shows I will present to you were very good and well received, and pretty much overall I liked most of these shows. Let's get going with 10 movies turned into one-hour television shows. Alien Nation is a 1988 science fiction film directed by Graham Baker and starring James Caan and Mandy Patinkin. The movie blends elements of sci-fi with buddy cop and crime thriller genres. Set in a near-future Los Angeles, the film takes place after a race of alien refugees known as the Newcomers, or the Tenctonese, arrive on Earth. Though they integrate into human society, they still face discrimination and cultural differences. Detective Matthew Sykes, played by James Caan, a hardened LAPD officer with a strong prejudice against the aliens, is reluctantly paired with Sam Francisco, played by Mandy Patinkin, the first newcomer detective. Together they investigate a drug-related homicide that leads them to a dangerous conspiracy involving an illegal narcotic designed specifically for the newcomers. The movie serves as a social allegory, tackling issues of racism, immigration, and cultural integration, using the newcomers as a metaphor for marginalized groups. The Alien Nation television series was a sci-fi crime drama based on the 1988 movie of the same name. It aired on Fox for one season before being canceled due to budget concerns, despite strong ratings and a dedicated fan base. Each episode explored crime investigations, social issues, and the challenges of interspecies relationships, blending procedural cop drama with science fiction and social allegory. This time out, Detective Matthew Sykes is played by Gary Graham, and Detective George Francisco is played by Eric Pierpoint. The show expanded on the film's themes of racism, xenophobia, addiction, and family dynamic, using the newcomers as a metaphor for real-world social struggles. Episodes often paralleled contemporary issues such as immigration, prejudice, and cultural assimilation. Though it was canceled for that one season, the show's popularity led to 5 TV movies in the 1990s. There was Dark Horizon, 94, Body and Soul, 95, Millennium, 96, The Enemy Within, 96, and The Eudora Legacy for 1997. The series has remained a cult favorite, influenced later shows like District 9 and The Orville. There have been discussions about reboots over the years, but no new projects have materialized. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie is a 1992 horror comedy film directed by Fran Rebel Kuzui, Kuzui, and written by Joss Whedon. It served as the original concept for what later became the iconic 1997 TV series of the same name. Buffy Summers, played by Kristy Swanson, is a typical high school cheerleader in Los Angeles who learns she is the Slayer, a chosen warrior destined to battle vampires. Initially uninterested in her fate, she is trained by Merrick, played by Donald Sutherland, a mysterious watcher who guides her in slaying techniques. Buffy soon finds herself up against Lothos, Rutger Hauer, a powerful vampire lord, and his henchman Emmeline, put by Paul Rubens? Really? I guess I've never seen this movie. As she embraces her destiny, she must protect her school, friends, and herself from the growing vampire threat. The film received mixed to negative reviews, with critics praising Kristy Swanson's performance but criticizing the inconsistent tone and comedic approach. Joss Whedon was reportedly unhappy with how the movie turned out, as his darker, more dramatic script was altered for a campier tone. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a critically acclaimed supernatural drama TV series created by Joss Whedon. It originally aired on the WB from 1997 to 2001 before moving to the UPN from 2001 to 2003 for its final 2 seasons. The show blended horror, comedy, action, and deep character development, becoming a defining pop culture phenomenon. The show tackled mature themes such as love, loss, identity, addiction, and power dynamics, using supernatural elements as metaphors for real-life struggles. It also introduced strong female protagonists, LGBTQ plus representation, and genre-defying storytelling, making it a lasting cultural icon. And there were spin-offs for this. Angel from 1999 to 2004 was a spin-off following Angel's quest for redemption in Los Angeles. There was Buffy Comics, continuations of the story, including Buffy Season 8 through 12. Now, the movie had a lighter, campier tone, while the TV series embraced a darker, more complex narrative. In the TV continuity, the events of the film are loosely referenced, but with some changes. For instance, Buffy's Watcher was named Merrick, but his portrayal was totally different. Possible reboot plans for a new Buffy series has been discussed, but just like Alien Nation, nothing is certain. Blue Thunder is a 1983 action thriller directed by John Badham, starring Roy Scheider, Malcolm McDowell, Daniel Stern, and Candy Clark. The film is known for its high-tech helicopter action and political thriller elements. Frank Murphy, played by Roy Scheider, is a seasoned LAPD helicopter pilot and Vietnam War veteran assigned to test Blue Thunder, a state-of-the-art, heavily armed military-style helicopter. The aircraft is designed for urban surveillance and counterterrorism, but Murphy soon discovers a dark government conspiracy behind its true purpose. With help of rookie partner Richard Lyman-Good, played by Daniel Stern, Murphy uncovers classified plans for using Blue Thunder in domestic surveillance and political assassinations. As he tries to expose the truth, he becomes the target of Colonel Cochran, played by Malcolm McDowell, a ruthless military officer from his past. This leads to a thrilling aerial showdown over Los Angeles. The film explores themes of government overreach, surveillance, and militarization of law enforcement, featuring groundbreaking aerial cinematography with real helicopter stunts. It also focuses on predicted concerns about military-grade tech being used for civilian control, making it more relevant today than ever. The film's Blue Thunder helicopter remains an iconic piece of movie history. The Blue Thunder TV series was a short-lived action show that aired on ABC from January to April of 1984. It was based on the 1983 movie of the same name, but toned down the darker themes in favor of a more traditional crime-fighting action format. Set in Los Angeles, the show follows Blue Thunder, a high-tech, heavily armed police helicopter used to combat crime, terrorism, and urban threats. Unlike the movie's darker themes of government overreach, the series focused on law enforcement missions, making it more like a cop procedural with aerial action. The helicopter was operated by a specialized police unit called Blue Thunder Team, which tackled drug cartels, terrorists, and high-tech criminals. The role of Frank Murphy, played by Roy Scheider, was replaced by a new character, Frank Chaney, portrayed by James Fortino. In an interesting note, Dana Carvey, of all people, played Clifton Jaffo Wonderlove, Chaney's rookie co-pilot with tech specialization. The show only lasted 11 episodes before being canceled due to low ratings. It faced direct competition from the hit series Dallas and struggled against NBC's Airwolf, another helicopter-based action series that proved more successful. While short-lived, Blue Thunder is still remembered for its aerial action sequences and futuristic helicopter design. Lethal Weapon is a 1987 action buddy cop film directed by Richard Donner, written by Shane Black, and starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. It is the first installment in the Lethal Weapon franchise and is considered one of the greatest action films of all time. Veteran LAPD detective Roger Murtaugh, played by Danny Glover, is a cautious, by-the-book cop nearing retirement. His new partner, Martin Riggs, played by Mel Gibson, is a reckless, suicidal ex-Special Forces soldier struggling with his wife's death. The two are mismatched in both temperament and approach, but must work together to investigate the murder of a young woman that leads them to a dangerous drug smuggling operation run by ex-military mercenaries. As they unravel the case, their uneasy partnerships evolves into a deep friendship. One of the defining buddy cop movies, blending action, comedy, and emotional depth, explores PTSD and grief, with Riggs being one of the most emotionally complex action heroes of the era. The movie is famous for its intense action sequences and witty banter between Riggs and Murtaugh. And it introduced that iconic phrase, "I'm too old for this shit." The success of Lethal Weapon led to the long-running franchise with Lethal Weapon 2, where Riggs and Murtaugh take on South African drug smugglers. Lethal Weapon 3, they battle corrupt cops and illegal weapons dealers. And Lethal Weapon 4, they go up against a Chinese crime syndicate. And that featured Jet Li. And then there was the Lethal Weapon TV series. The Lethal Weapon TV series was a modern reboot of the classic buddy cop film franchise, airing on Fox from 2016 to 2019. It reimagined the characters of Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh with new actors and a fresh take, while retaining the action, humor, and emotional depth of the original movies. Set in modern-day Los Angeles, the show follows LAPD detective Martin Riggs and Roger Murtaugh as they investigate violent crimes while dealing with their personal struggles. The dynamic between the reckless, thrill-seeking Riggs and the cautious cautious family man Murtaugh remained central to the story. Clayne Crawford, who played Riggs, was fired after season 2 due to reports of on-set conflicts and alleged inappropriate behavior. His character was killed off, and Sean William Scott was introduced in season 3 as a new character, Wesley Cole, replacing Riggs as Murtaugh's partner. The loss of Riggs disappointed many fans, and viewership declined in season 3. The series was canceled after 3 seasons due to behind-the-scenes conflicts, dropping ratings after Clayne Crawford's departure, and Damon Wayans announcing he was leaving the show due to health concerns. The first 2 seasons were well received, praised for the chemistry between Crawford and Wayans. After Riggs' departure, fan interest declined, leading to the show's end. While the TV series had some differences from the films, it successfully captured the buddy cop dynamic and intense action of the original movies. The Terminator is a 1984 sci-fi action thriller directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. It became a cult classic, launching a franchise that redefined action in science fiction cinema. In 1984 Los Angeles, Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, is a young waitress who becomes the target of a relentless cyborg assassin, the Terminator, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sent from the year 2029, the Terminator's mission is to kill Sarah before she can give birth to John Connor, the future leader of the human resistance against Skynet, an AI that will wage war against humanity. To protect Sarah, the resistance sends Kyle Reese, portrayed by Michael Biehn, a skilled soldier from the future. As they evade the nearly indestructible Terminator, Sarah learns about the impending apocalypse, her son's destiny, and her own transformation into a fighter. The success of the Terminator led to a long-running franchise, with Terminator 2 Judgment Day, a groundbreaking sequel where the T-800 becomes a hero. There's T3, Rise of the Machine, where John Connor faces the rise of Skynet. Then it kind of went downhill from there with Terminator Salvation from 2009, a future war story starring Christian Bale as John Connor. Terminator Genesis from 2015, a reboot attempting to rewrite the timeline. And Terminator Dark Fate from 2019, a direct sequel to T2, ignoring previous sequels and not doing a very good job of it. "I'll be back" is one of the most famous quotes in history.
I'll be back. Stay here. I'll be back.
Daddy, don't move.
She'll be back. I'm back.
And the movie, the original Terminator, revolutionized special effects and action filmmaking, and helped define Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. And then came the TV series. The Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, is a sci-fi TV series based on the Terminator franchise, and it aired on Fox for 2 seasons from 2008 to 2009, and served as an alternative sequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day, ignoring later films. Set after Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the show follows Sarah Connor, portrayed by Lena Headey, and her son John Connor, played by Thomas Dekker, as they try to stop the rise of Skynet, an AI that will eventually trigger the apocalypse. To protect them, Cameron, played by Summer Glau, a reprogrammed Terminator, helps them evade both future Terminators and government agents. Meanwhile, Agent James Ellison, portrayed by Richard T. Jones, investigates their activities, unaware of the larger battle between humanity and machines. The themes and differences from the movies: it explored John Connor's growth into a leader, something the film skipped. Cameron, Summer Glau, how do you say her name? Summer Glau, Summer Glee, Summer Glau? Anyways, Summer was a unique Terminator with possible human emotions. It was more psychological and philosophical than the action-driven movies. It introduced the AI evolution concept, with Skynet developing in new ways. Despite strong reviews and a dedicated fan base, the show was canceled after 2 seasons due to low ratings and budget concerns, and it left on a cliffhanger, with John Connor ending up in an alternative future where no one knows who he is. Regarded as one of the best sci-fi shows canceled too soon, and I love this show. God damn it, Fox. I love this show. And of course it ended on a cliffhanger. Fox loved to cancel shows. They were renowned for it, especially when they had a cliffhanger. Anyways, I digress. Let's go to the next one. In the Heat of the Night is a 1967 American mystery drama film directed by Norman Jewison and based on the 1965 novel by John Ball. The film is notable for addressing racial tensions in the South during the 1960s and remains an important film in the history of American cinema. The film is set in a small town in Sparta, Mississippi, where a wealthy businessman is found murdered. The local police chief, Bill Gillespie, played by Rod Steiger, is forced to work with Virgil Tibbs, played by Sidney Poitier, a black detective from Philadelphia, who is initially mistaken for the killer but proves to be a highly skilled investigator. Despite the tension and racial prejudice in the town, Tibbs and Gillespie form an uneasy yet effective partnership to solve the crime. As they uncover the truth, the film explores themes of racism, justice, and human dignity. The film directly addresses issues of racism, with Tibbs having to navigate both the overt and subtle racism of the time. The partnership between Tibbs and Gillespie serves as a metaphor for the potential for racial reconciliation in a divided society. The film's iconic line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs," delivered by Poitier, became a symbol of dignity and resistance.
Well, you're pretty sure of yourself, ain't you, Virgil? Virgil, that's a funny name for a boy that comes from Philadelphia. What do they call you up there?
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Mr. Tibbs! Well, Mr. Wood, take Mr. Tibbs, take him down to the depot, and I mean boy like now.
Sidney Poitier was widely praised for his portrayal of Virgil Tibbs, and Rod Steiger won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role. The film was a critical and commercial success, receiving several nominations and winning 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. In the Heat of the Night became a significant step in changing how African American characters were portrayed in film. There were sequels and adaptations. They Call Me Mr. Tibbs from 1970 was a sequel to the film where Virgil Tibbs takes on a new case, though it was less successful than the original, and that had Poitier in there. And The Organization from 1971, the further sequel featuring Poitier as Tibbs, which was also less impactful. In the Heat of the Night was a television adaptation of the 1967 film and its subsequent sequels, airing on NBC from 1988 to 1992 and later on CBS from 1992 to 1995. The show continued the themes of the film, including racial tension, justice, and community dynamics, but it presented them in a new serialized format. Set in the fictional town of Sparta, Mississippi, the series follows Sheriff Bill Gillespie and Virgil Gibbs, a black detective, as they work together to solve crimes while navigating the racial and social challenges of the South. Although the show often focused on the crime-solving aspect, it also explored the evolving relationship between the characters, their personal struggles, and the changing societal norms. The series retained the core elements of the movie, the unlikely partnership between a white Southern sheriff and a black detective, as well as the deep racial divisions that influenced their work. However, it also evolved these dynamics with the characters adjusting to modern life, post-civil rights movement tensions, and the challenge of working in a racially divided community. Carol O'Connor played Sheriff Bill Gillespie, the somewhat gruff, initially prejudiced sheriff who over time becomes a more understanding, supportive ally to Virgil. His character had evolved from the original film, showing more depth and development. And Howard E. Rollins Jr. as Virgil Tibbs, a highly skilled, dignified detective from Philadelphia who had been assigned to work in Sparta, bringing a strong moral center to the team. Rollins' portrayal of Tibbs mirrored Sidney Poitier's dignified, calm demeanor from the film, but adapted into the series format. Just like the film, the series explores the complexities of race, though the show dealt with the issues more explicitly in a post-civil rights era, where racial tensions were still prevalent but less overt. Each episode generally followed a murder mystery or crime scenario that required Tibbs' sharp investigation skills and Gillespie's local knowledge, often bringing them into conflict with the social issues of the day. Both Gillespie and Tibbs' characters evolved significantly over the series, with Gillespie becoming more open-minded and accepting of Tibbs in the changing times. Tibbs also grows in a respected figure in the town, balancing his professional career with his role as a family man. The series was well received for its strong performances, particularly from Carol O'Connor and Howard E. Rollins Jr., and was praised for its sensitive handling of social issues. And it ran for those 8 seasons, producing 172 episodes. The show was significant for its portrayal of black characters in law enforcement, a role often underrepresented on TV at the time. It also helped to continue the conversation of racial relationships in the South, offering viewers a more complex view of the police work and race relations. After the first few seasons, Rollins left the show due to personal struggles, including his battle with addiction. His departure and the subsequent recasting in the later seasons with Carl Weathers as Clarence Clance Miles marked a significant shift in the series. The show cemented its place as a groundbreaking television program for its portrayal of the race relations in law enforcement in the 20th century South, South, it offered a realistic view of the complexity of Southern life in the modern era, blending crime-solving with the examination of moral issues in a racially charged environment. In the Heat of the Night continues to be remembered as a thoughtful, well-crafted show that brought the themes of the original film to a wider audience. Dirty Dancing is a 1987 American romantic drama directed by Emile Ordolino and written by Eleanor Bergstein. Set in the summer of 1963, it is a dance-themed film that became a cultural phenomenon, particularly for its music, iconic dance scenes, and themes of love and self-discovery. The story follows Frances Baby Hausman, played by Jennifer Grey, a young woman from a wealthy family who vacations with her parents at a resort in the Catskill Mountains. Initially naive and shy, Baby becomes involved with Johnny Castle, portrayed by Patrick Swayze, the resort's rebellious dance instructor. As Baby becomes more connected with Johnny, she learns about the world of professional dance, love, and complexities of adult relationships. Baby also discovers that Johnny's life isn't as glamorous as it seems. He has personal struggles and a complicated romantic history. Together they perform a stunning dance number that becomes one of the most memorable scenes in movie history. The film's soundtrack, which featured classic songs such as I've Had the Time of My Life, performed by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes, Hungry Eyes by Eric Carmen, and She's Like the Wind by Patrick Swayze, played a huge role in its popularity. The final dance scene where Johnny and Baby perform the iconic lift became one of the most famous moments in film history. The combination of romance, music, and dance struck a chord with audiences, especially those who love dance films. It cemented Patrick Swayze as a Hollywood icon and made Jennifer Grey a star. The film was nominated for several awards, including an Academy Award for Best Original Song for I've Had the Time of My Life, which won. The movie's popularity led to the stage musical, which debuted in 2004, a 2004 prequel, and a remake in 2017, though none quite matched the impact of the original. In 1988, a TV adaptation of Dirty Dancing aired on ABC, but it was a short-lived series that ran for just one season. The series was an attempt to bring the charm and appeal of the 1987 movie to the small screen, though it didn't achieve the same level of success. The television show took place in the early 1960s at a resort similar to the one in the film, but instead of focusing on the original characters like Johnny Castle and Baby Hausman, the series introduced new characters and different storylines. While the premise of romance, dance, and family conflict remained the same, the show was more focused on the lives of the staff and guests at the resort. While the TV series maintained the romantic, dance-driven atmosphere, it was more lighthearted and had a family-oriented tone. It lacked the intense sexual chemistry and dramatic stakes that made the film so iconic. The show also faced challenges in maintaining a gritty realism and emotional depth that made the original movie stand out. The show was canceled after just one season due to poor ratings and the difficulty of living up to the success of the original film. It just didn't resonate with audiences in the same way as the movie. While the movie became an enduring cult classic, the show didn't capture the magic of the film, possibly due to the loss of iconic characters like Patrick Swayze's Johnny and Jennifer Grey's Baby. The TV show didn't have the lasting impact of the film and was largely forgotten in comparison to the film's cultural significance. Despite the show's lack of success, Mallory Hardin, who played Baby, went on to have a successful career, including notable roles in The Office and The Bold Type. Blade is a 1998 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name, directed by Stephen Dorrington and starring Wesley Snipes in the title role. It is a dark, action-packed film that blends elements of horror, superhero, and martial arts genres. The film follows Blade, portrayed by Wesley Snipes, a half-human, half-vampire hybrid who has dedicated his life to fighting and destroying vampires. He was born after his mother was bitten by a vampire during pregnancy, giving him enhanced strength, agility, and senses, but also making him vulnerable to sunlight. Blade uses these abilities to fight a secret war against vampires, aided by his loyal allies, Whistler, played by Chris Christopherson, a weapons expert, and Karen Jensen, N. Bush Wright, a hematologist who becomes involved in the battle after being bitten by a vampire. The central antagonist of the film is Deacon Frost, portrayed by Stephen Dorff, a rogue vampire who seeks to overthrow the Vampire Council and summon La Magra, an ancient and powerful vampire god, in order to dominate the world. The film mixes traditional vampire myths with new mythology, particularly Blade's origin as a hybrid of vampire and human. Blade is portrayed as a martial artist, and the film features intense fight scenes and gunfights as well as swordplay, making it stand out among other superhero films of the time. The film maintains a gritty R-rated tone, focusing on the darker aspects of vampire mythology and Blade's struggle with his identity. Blade is portrayed as an anti-hero, a character character who is not fully human and is driven by vengeance, which adds complexity to his character. Blade was a critical and commercial success, grossing over $131 million worldwide on a $45 million budget. Wesley Snipes' performance as Blade became iconic, establishing him as one of the most memorable anti-heroes in superhero cinema. The film is often credited with helping pave the way for the modern superhero movie trend, especially given its success prior to the explosion of superhero franchises like the X-Men and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Blade's success led to 2 sequels. Blade 2, directed by Guillermo del Toro, which continued Blade's battle against vampires, and then Blade Trinity, which introduced new characters like Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel as Blade's allies. Blade is considered one of the first successful Marvel-based movies that wasn't tied to traditional superhero universes, laying the groundwork for future Marvel films. Wesley Snipes' dedication to the role of Blade led him to undergo extensive martial arts training, making his fight scenes more authentic and intense. He is known for performing most of his own stunts. The film's iconic soundtrack, which features a mix of hip-hop and techno, helped set the tone for the action sequences and became a defining part of the film's atmosphere. Blade the Series, in 2006 American television show that serves as a continuation of the Blade franchise. It aired on Spike TV and ran for 1 season before being canceled. The series was intended to bring the character of Blade, previously portrayed by Wesley Snipes in the films, to the small screen, but with a new actor and a slightly different tone. The show follows Blade's Sticky Fingers this time, a vampire hunter who continues his war against vampires, but this time he is facing a more complex enemy, a powerful vampire organization known as the House of Stankt? The House of Stankt? Chthon, however the hell you pronounce that. The show delves deeper into Blade's personal struggles, particularly his attempt to balance his human and vampire sides, as well as his continuing mission to eliminate the vampire threat. In the series, Blade works with a team of allies, including Krista Starr, played by Jill Wagner, a former soldier turned vampire hunter, Charlotte, played by Chase, whoever the hell that is, Collins, played by Neil Jackson, a vampire who is part of the vampire underworld. Blade is constantly in pursuit of both vengeance and redemption, and the series explores the dynamic between him and his enemies, his allies, and his inner turmoil. The series maintained the dark, gritty tone established in the Blade films, focusing on action, vampire mythology, and Blade's internal struggle. Martial arts and action sequences were an important part of the show, continuing the stylized combat seen in the films. The series incorporated a serialized format with ongoing storylines revolving around the vampire underworld and Blade's search for vengeance, while also focusing on his efforts to prevent the spread of vampirism. The show also had a slightly grimmer and more soap opera-like emotional focus than the films, particularly on how it portrayed Blade's relationship with his team and his enemies. The show received mixed reviews from critics and audiences, with some praising the action and Sticky Fingers portrayal of Blade, while others felt it didn't quite live up to the film franchise. The series was canceled after 1 season due to low ratings and budget constraints. Blade the series did not manage to achieve the same level of success as the films, and it remains a somewhat obscure part of the Blade franchise's legacy. However, it was praised for continuing the story of the character in a serialized format and offering a nude interpretation of Blade for TV audiences. Sticky Fingers, a member of the rap group Onyx, was chosen to portray Blade in the series after Wesley Snipes did not return for the role, and his performance received mixed reaction, as many fans compared him to Snipes' iconic portrayal in the films. And I did get to see 1 episode. I wasn't crazy about it. Obviously, I only watched 1 episode, and that was enough for me. Swamp Thing is a 1982 American superhero film directed by Wes Craven, based on the DC Comics character of the same name. The film blends horror, superhero, and science fiction genres, and was one of the early films to capitalize on the rising popularity of comic book adaptations in the 1980s. The story revolves around Dr. Alec Holland, played by Ray Wise, a scientist working on a top-secret project at a remote swamp, attempting to create a formula that could revolutionize the world. However, a group of mercenaries led by Anton Arcane, played by Louis Jordan, attacks his lab to steal his research. During the attack, Alec is exposed to the formula, which mutates him into the Swamp Thing, a monstrous plant-human hybrid with immense strength and the ability to control plant life. Swamp Thing sets out on a quest to seek revenge on Arcane, who is obsessed with capturing him to unlock the formula's secret. Meanwhile, Alice Cable, played by Adrienne Barbeau, Crow, the government agent who was sent to investigate Alec's project, becomes an ally to Swamp Thing as she helps him fight Arcane's forces. Man versus nature, the film explores the themes of environmentalism and the human relationship with nature, as Swamp Thing transformation symbolizes the way humans tamper with nature and suffer the consequences. Swamp Thing struggles with his new identity and the loss of his former life as Alec Holland. His desire for revenge against Arcane fuels the plot, while his growing connection to Alice Cable offers a more emotional core to his character. While the movie has some elements of traditional superhero films, it also leans into horror with grotesque transformations, monster fights, and dark themes. The film mixes these genres to give a unique take on the superhero narrative. The film received mixed reviews upon release, with some praising its fun, campy tone and special effects, while others criticized its budget limitations and some of the performances. Despite the mixed critical reception, Swamp Thing gained a cult following over the years, especially among fans of horror and comic book adaptations. The movie was also notable for being directed by Wes Craven, who would later go on to direct the highly influential A Nightmare on Elm Street. In 1989, the film was followed by a sequel, The Return of Swamp Thing, which took a more comedic and campy approach compared to the darker tone of the original. Swamp Thing also inspired a live-action TV series from 1990 to 1991 and a cartoon in 1991, both of which continued to explore this character's universe, though in different tones. The Swamp Thing costume and makeup were created by special effects legend Dick Smith, who also worked on films like The Exorcist and The Godfather. His work on the creature design was praised for its attention to detail, though the heavy suit proved challenging for the actor wearing it. Adrienne Barbeau, who played Alice Cable, was already a well-known figure in horror due to her role in John Carpenter's The Fog from 1980, and she added star power to the film. The Swamp Thing television series aired for 3 seasons from 1990 to 1991 on USA Network. It was a live-action show based on the DC Comics character created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. The series continued the story of Swamp Thing following the premise of the 1982 film, but was with a slightly different tone and format suited for TV audiences. But we're not going to talk about this one because it was only a half an hour long. We'll touch on this one in the future. We're talking about the 2019 one. Swamp Thing is a short-lived live-action television series based on the DC comic character created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. The show premiered on the DC Universe streaming service on May 31st of 2019, but was canceled after just 1 season due to internal and financial issues with Warner Media. Despite its brief run, the series garnered critical acclaim for its atmospheric storytelling, dark tone, and faithful adaptation of the character from the comics. Set in the small town of Morose, Louisiana, the series centers around Alec Holland, played by Andy Bean this time, a biologist who is working on the groundbreaking project to combat a deadly disease that has been spreading through the town. After a tragic accident, Alec is transformed into the Swamp Thing, played by Derek Mears, a humanoid plant monster. As Swamp Thing, Alec retains his human consciousness but is forced to live in the swamps, navigating his new monstrous form while protecting the world from forces that threaten the natural order. At the heart of the series is Abby Arcane, played by Crystal Reed, a CDC investigator who returns to her hometown of Morace to investigate the mysterious disease outbreak. As she becomes more involved with Alec's transformation and the strange occurrences in the swamp, Abby discovers the dark secrets of the town and forces that manipulate both human and supernatural elements. Meanwhile, the villainous Dr. Jason Woodrue, played by Kevin Durant, seeks to exploit the powers of the swamp for his own sinister agenda. The 2019 Swamp Thing series embraced its horror roots, creating a dark, atmospheric world full of supernatural occurrences, grotesque monsters, and the eerie, haunting ambiance of the Louisiana Bayou. It drew inspiration from the more gothic and horror-driven elements of Swamp Thing's comic book origins. The show not only explores the monster hero's story, but also deals with heavy environmental and ecological themes, touching on the corruption, greed, and destruction, and the destructive nature of humanity in contrast to the natural world. Much like the comics, the series delves deeply into the human side of Swamp Thing, exploring the emotional toll of Alec's transformation, his struggle with his identity, and his desire to protect those he cares about. The show utilized a combination of CGI and practical makeup to create Swamp Thing's appearance. The Swamp Thing suit was highly praised for its detail, resembling the monstrous and plant-like form from the comics. The practical effects were used effectively to bring the character to life in a tactile, realistic way. The show received critical praise, especially for its visual effects, performance performances and the mature themes it tackled, and many critics praising it as one of the best adaptations of a comic book character in recent years. Derek Mears' portrayal of Swamp Thing was widely appreciated for its physicality, with many calling it one of the most visually stunning versions of the character to date. Crystal Reed's performance as Abby Arcane was also lauded with bringing emotional depth to the series, making her an important and relatable character. Despite the positive critical response, the show was canceled after just one season due to financial issues. The production was hit with a budget cut early in its run, which led to the decision to cancel the series after only 10 episodes, with the final episode airing on August 2nd of 2019. The abrupt cancellation left many fans disappointed, as there were hints at larger story arcs that could have been explored in a potentially second season. In the wake of the series cancellation, many fans have hoped for the Swamp Thing revival, with some speculating that the character may appear in future DC Universe films or television projects, especially given the popularity of Swamp Thing in modern media. Despite the show's short-lived run, the Swamp Thing TV series has since become a fan favorite, and the series is often cited as one of the best DC Universe TV shows of its time, with particular attention paid to how well it captured the spiritual and ecological themes of the original comics. RoboCop is a 1987 American cyberpunk action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Newcomers and Michael Miner, I do believe. The film is set in a near-future dystopian Detroit where crime has reached catastrophic levels. It centers on Alex Murphy, a good cop who is brutally murdered and resurrected by a corporate-controlled program as RoboCop, a cybernetic law enforcer with human memories and emotions. In a crime-ridden Detroit, the powerful corporation, the OCP, the Omni Consumer Products, has taken control of the police force and is looking to profit from its law enforcement. When Officer Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller, is killed in the line of duty by criminals, OCP reanimates his body into RoboCop, a fully cybernetic law enforcement officer. RoboCop is programmed to serve the public and enforce the law without question. However, as RoboCop begins to regain fragments of his human memories, he experiences a conflict between his mechanical programming and his humanity. He becomes increasingly aware of his past and seeks revenge on those who killed him, including the corrupt executives at OCP and the criminals controlling the city. One of the core themes of RoboCop is the dystopian world ruled by corporate interests, where OCP seeks to control the police force and privatize the entire city. The film critiques corporate overreach and the dehumanization of both people and public services. The film is also known for its satirical take on violence, particularly in the ways it portrays excessive bloodshed and action as a reflection of society's detachment from violence. RoboCop was a critical and commercial success, praised for its thought-provoking themes, visual effects, and performances, particularly Peter Weller's portrayal of the title character. It became a cult classic and is often cited as one of the greatest sci-fi films of the 1980s, combining a gritty, futuristic setting with philosophical musings of humanity and technology. The film has inspired sequels, remakes, and television adaptations. Notably, the 1990 sequel RoboCop 2 continued the story, though it didn't achieve the same level of acclaim as the original. A reboot of RoboCop was released in 2014, which reimagined the story with a modern twist and a focus on ethical dilemmas surrounding the creation of a cyborg law enforcement officer. The 2014 reboot, directed by Jose Padilla, reimagines the original film with more contemporary focus on the moral implications of robotic law enforcement and corporate control. It stars Joel Kinnaman as Alex Murphy, Gary Oldman as Dr. Danette Norton, the scientist who creates RoboCop, and Michael Keaton as Raymond Sellers, the CEO of the company behind RoboCop's creation. While the 2014 version was more PG-13, aiming for a broader audience, it didn't receive the same level of praise as the 1987 film. Critics generally felt the reboot lacked the original satirical edge and social commentary, focusing more on the action elements instead. RoboCop the series is a live-action TV series that aired for one season in 1994. It was an attempt to expand the RoboCop franchise following the success of the 1987 film and its sequels. Unlike the films, which focused on the darker, more violent aspects of RoboCop's existence, the series had a more PG-13 tone, making it more suitable for television audiences. Set in the near-future dystopian Detroit, the series follows Alex Murphy, aka RoboCop, a cybernetic law enforcement officer who works to maintain peace in the city dominated by corruption, crime, and corporate greed. Although the series was intended to continue the narrative from the movies, it's reimagined some aspects of the original character and storylines, often featuring standalone episodes. The show focuses on RoboCop's struggle between his humanity and cybernetic programming. He continues to uphold the law while trying to navigate his own moral dilemmas and uncovering new threats to the city. In the series, RoboCop's human side is more prominently featured, especially with his memories of his former life as Alex Murphy, which occasionally surface and affect his decision-making making. RoboCop continues to battle crime and corruption aided by his partners while dealing with the growing influence of the OCP, the corporation behind his creation. The series leaned more toward the action-adventure genre with episodic stories centered around RoboCop solving crimes, investigating corruption, and dealing with the criminal underworld of Detroit. There was still a central theme of cybernetic versus human identity, but the show veered away from the violent satirical style of the films, which explored darker societal themes. RoboCop the series was moderately received, though it wasn't as well received as the original films. While some appreciated the exploration of RoboCop's character, others felt that the violence and grittiness of the films had been diluted for television. The show's PG-13 tone and focus on crime solving without as much of the satirical humor or intense action didn't resonate with all fans of the original film. The series was canceled after just one season due to low ratings, but it remains part of the RoboCop legacy, contributing to the character's continued presence in pop culture. Despite its short run, the show developed a cult following, with some fans appreciating its attempt to explore RoboCop's psychological and emotional conflicts. Although the series lacked the high-tech visual effects of the films, it was praised for its practical effects and the way RoboCop was presented on screen. The series was known for creating practical robotic costumes for RoboCop, giving the show a tactile feel, even in its low-budget format. Hey, gals and guys, and that's it this time out for movies to our TV shows. And I think next time I'm going to do movies to animation, I think is the next one in this series of TV to movies or movies to TV. So I hope you enjoy them. I enjoy putting them together and going back and exploring the old movies and old TV shows of the past. It's fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. And if you could please subscribe and share and like and hit the bell for updates, I most appreciate it. And then I will catch you soon. See ya. Peace.